That's right.
Is it time?
It's time tonight whether she wants it or not. So they're
And
gonna
at 6:30, you better hit the door and get out of here and go
Yeah.
wherever they are.
I can't get in the hospital. And they're in Cape Canaveral.
That's ridiculous.
Welcome to the Spalding County Board of Commissioners zoning public hearing. It is Thursday, October 27th, 2022 at 6 p.m. I would request that everyone please silence your cell phones and all other electronic devices. Do we have a motion to amend the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to include the adoption of the joint resolution with the City of Griffin for approval of the service delivery strategy and submission to the state of Georgia. If we can, put it on item number 1 on old business.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0, motion carries. All right, the invocation will be delivered today by Commissioner James Dutton, and the pledge to the flag will be led by Commissioner Ryan Bolden.
Please stand. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, Father, we lovingly come before you tonight as humble servants. Father, please help us to do thy will here in this meeting. Father, bless this weekend all of those first responders that will be out there sacrificing their time away from their families and loved ones to serve our community. Father, bless them with health and safety that they can return to those loved ones whole and well. Father, bless our families while we're away from them. Bless all those that stand in need and help us grow closer to thee daily in our lives. And we ask these blessings humbly in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
If you would, please join me in a pledge to our flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Where did the amendment agenda to? Where did that go?
Number 1 under old business. That'll be next. All right. Item number D, old business. New item number 1, amend the agenda to approve the service delivery strategy and the submission to the state of Georgia. County Manager.
It is my absolute privilege to show the hard work that the county and city staff have completed. And I just want to give City Manager Jessica O'Connor a round of just absolute applause for the wonderful job that she and her staff have done to put this together. There were a few items that they wanted us to consider as we moved back and forth. One of those items, the city will be retaining their animal control officers. We have a new IGA with respect to the animal shelter. Very pleased with how that turned out. Very pleased with how the animal control discussion turned out. The agreement for the 800 megahertz radios, that is done. We are in full agreement with it, so kudos to the city for that. One addition that we have inside of the SDS for this evening for consideration is that the city is asking us to take over all of City Park, not the swimming pool or not the golf course, but the pavilion, the tennis courts, and the other equipment that is located there because as I heard the park, yep. As I heard Miss Jessica indicate during our discussion, the county does a really good job at recreation and taking care of the park area, and the city would like for us to take over that area. Good news is that the tennis courts were just updated last year, so we're not going to have to worry about the maintenance on redoing those courts. The pavilion area is a rental facility, so that will be some additional revenue coming in for the rental of that property. I think after all that we've been through in the book, and we have invested a considerable amount of time, so thank you to Stephanie, thank you to Jessica, thank you to Kelsey, who have all been just instrumental in putting this material together. I think we have a wonderful service delivery strategy document, and I think we have a wonderful intergovernmental agreement on each of the items that are listed. And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, if Jessica is so inclined, I would invite her to say a few words if she doesn't mind.
Yes, please.
I will. I would just echo what Dr. Ledbetter said. I mean, I think if we remember back to the July 15th meeting when we asked for negotiation of loss, we really had already been working on SDS for about 3 years. So it's really finally come to an end. I said on July 15th that I didn't think it had ever really been right, to no offense of anybody in the past. We just didn't really know exactly what SDS meant. It's a newer law from 1999. So this time, I feel like we are submitting a document that is correct, that is what we do for our citizens, that properly sort of provides the services that each of us do, and we have the right party doing it. So those that really do well with the animal shelter or with Parks and Rec are the ones doing it. So I'm excited to see it submitted and really glad to have it passed us.
Yes.
I'm tired.
Do you have the resolution?
We, do you have a copy? I do, actually.
How about, let's read the resolution.
So this morning at the city's special called meeting, a joint resolution for the adoption of the service delivery strategy was presented, and Mr. McCord and Ms. Jessica signed the document this morning, and the resolution states as following. A joint resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Griffin, Georgia, and the Board of Commissioners of Spalding County, Georgia, agreeing to the service delivery strategy arrangements identified in the 2022 Spalding County Service Delivery Strategy to extend the existing strategy through and to include October 31st, 2032. Reaffirming those intergovernmental agreements with Spalding County and the other municipalities who are parties to the service delivery strategy, and authorizing the mayor and the chairperson to sign Form 5 certification for extension of existing SDS, authorizing transmittal to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs and for other purposes. Whereas the City of Griffin and Spalding County are parties to the existing service delivery strategy, which will expire on October 31st, 2022, unless a new SDS is entered by the parties on or before that date, or the existing SDS is extended to a date certain. And whereas the parties have reviewed the existing SDS and agreed that with the changes made and the intergovernmental agreements approved by the Board of Commission and the City of Griffin and Spalding County, the service delivery strategy should be adopted and enforced through and to include October 31st, 2032. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Griffin and Spalding County agree with the service delivery strategy, the service delivery arrangement set forth and described in this amendment between Spalding County Service Delivery Strategy, and approves extending said revised SDS through and to include October 31st, 2032, or until such time as the Spalding County SDS is hereinafter renegotiated, should such occur sooner. Further resolved that the mayor of the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners and the chairperson of the Spalding County Board of Commissioners are hereby authorized and directed to sign Form 4 certification for amended and revised SDS, and calls the same to be transmitted to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs for and as the act of the said city and county. So signed.
600-plus pages of documents worked out, word for word, to be able to do that. So,
And this agreement is for how long, you said?
10 years.
10 years.
Make sure everybody knows that.
I have a question, because nobody answered my question when I emailed earlier. So, I don't see anything in here. It addresses in the parks final document that we are to take over all of City Park except for the golf course and everything associated with that. Are we aware that the playgrounds have to be replaced in City Park? One of them have already been torn down. And that means that the financial responsibility for replacing those items and replacing them in a legal way is going to be ours.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you shaking your head, I'm just wondering if everybody else knows that, because we're taking on additional financial responsibility with the tennis court and the playground. And I don't recall if I saw in there that we were supposed to be also taking over responsibility of the pavilions.
Yes, ma'am, it's the pavilion, the tennis courts, and that play area. The tennis courts were just refurbished last year, and the pavilion is in really good shape, and it is a revenue generator.
Okay, the playground, the children's playground was torn down last year, has not been replaced. The
The-
playground equipment at the bottom by the restroom and the big pavilions has been there since I was 12. Okay? So we're saying this, I want you to be aware that if there is a level you expect Spalding County to operate at, we immediately are going to have to do something over there. So long as y'all all understand, that's what you're taking on.
Thank you.
My other question was, in reference to the mutual aid agreement for animal control. I don't see, after I read through the state mutual aid agreement, how an emergency at animal control constitute an emergency with the state mutual aid agreement, because animal control is not a police agency,
Yes, ma'am, it's not a police agency, but one of the things that I
not a
did.
first responder agency either.
Could be.
Technically, I think it is a first responder agency because it is responding to issues with animals that could pose a life safety issue. So police officers are typically the first ones to respond to those types of incidences, and they will call an animal control officer to come and participate and support them in that activity.
So my question, Dr. Ledbetter, is that if there is an emergency in the county, and we have had them where we had multiple animals that had to be treated, does that mean that the City of Griffin animal control officers will provide aid to us? And at the same time, will we do that if they have such an emergency within the city? Those are the questions that I have concern about, because we're saying we have mutual aid, but we're also throwing everything that we can into the state mutual aid fund. And I would like to specifically know that if there is a situation, that we would be able to aid them, and they would aid us if there were a need for additional help.
Yes, ma'am. If there's a desire to have a specific IGA for mutual aid between us for animal control,
I would like that.
I don't think that would be an issue at all. We have responded under mutual aid for Henry County, and there was another county, I believe it was Pike County, that we've responded to here in the last few months that our guys went and supported because
Right, but
they
when
asked
we've
for help.
had situations in the county, which we have where there have been lots of animals, has the City of Griffin responded to help us? And did we ask them to? And is there an agreement with us that when we call you under those circumstances, will you show up?
Yes, ma'am. With your
And vice versa?
Yes, ma'am, and we just did that here recently for a case that actually happened inside the city. Our ACOs went and we removed, 18 animals from a house that was very close to here. Because I actually went down and Jessica and I were there having a conversation about it. But yes, ma'am, I'll be more than happy to sit down with Ms. O'Connor and work through the issues for a joint IGA for mutual aid.
So
Should
that would be an amendment to our agreement?
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
what
We
Okay,
you're
can
that's
do
what I
that.
was asking, would it be a separate IGA, or will we just kind of amend that
It
SDS
wouldn't
as part
even
of
have to be
SDS?
included in your service delivery strategy.
It
That's
would be.
correct.
We pass mutual aid agreements all the time, and they're not
Okay,
part
I
of
mean, I'm not
SDS.
saying it's the end all, but I recognize that if we have this relationship with them and it is separate from ours in terms of the animal control officers, when there is an emergency, and I don't mean the dog's head is off, but maybe there's 25 dogs, clearly 2 people cannot handle those. And you don't want people who are not trained in animal control to handle that. And so clearly we need to work together when it comes to
Agreed.
something like
Agreed.
that.
Yes, ma'am, and kudos to Jessica for that because we literally just completed one of those events, 4 weeks ago, maybe 5, where we took 18 dogs from a
I mean,
dog
even just for
fighting ring.
transportation purposes, we needed help. and they gave it, and we
So-
would do the same.
So one of the things I learned from SDS the last time is that if it's not in writing, it didn't happen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll fix it this time. Okay.
One more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, also, I did try to ask these questions before I got here. Just wanna say, I was late because there's a thing going on outside.
There's quite the party outside.
You
I
can't
told y'all
get to
about
the
that. I
building.
told y'all that.
I was told initially that there would be a number, a dollar sum that the city of Griffin would pay to Spalding County for animal control services. I asked the question, I didn't ask it to Jessica, I asked it to Commissioner Flowers. What were the numbers of animals that come into our shelter compared to the number of animals that come from Spalding County? And the other thing is that the number of animals that we have to spay and neuter matches those numbers. So I would think that any funding that we would get from them would help to accommodate spay and neuter, because clearly we're taking the bulk of those expenses. So I feel like my daughter told me it was $1,000,
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm just wondering how we got to that number.
So, the long answer to that is we took the
I want
total.
a short answer.
Okay, I promise I will try to get there. We took the total number of animals that came into the shelter. Tyler stayed here all night long pulling the numbers together. All the animals that came through, he separated them by dog and cat. Then he separated them by Spalding County dog and cat. And then I ran the analysis. On average, it's 21% of the animals that come into the county's shelter come from the city of Griffin. And then we took that percentage, because we do not have a way to pull the data that separates the veterinarian cost per animal, because it doesn't align to an animal. So we took that 20% and multiplied it times the total amount of veterinarian responsibility charges that we have in the county, and it was $1,041.40.
So.
That was the average for the last 4 years.
I appreciate
For the
that
year?
information, but I have actual knowledge in the past that the number of animals that we receive in our shelter, that we have to chip and that we have to provide the worming, the flea, everything, and not euthanasia, but spay and neutering, is greater in the city. Now, I don't know, maybe these are the numbers that Tyler has since Tyler has been here. But every other animal control activity that we have had, part of our argument has been that the bulk of the animals that come into the shelter come from the city. I'm great that they're wanting to do something, but I'm saying what we're taking on in addition to that, needs to be specified. That should not be, to me, that shouldn't be money that goes into the general fund. That money should go into spay and neuter, clearly designated for spay and neuter. But I really kind of feel like that number is way low. So, I mean,
And unfortunately, our data does not support
I'm gonna
a
need for y'all
further
to do better,
analysis.
yeah.
That was 4 years worth of pulling it off of paper. One of the things that I've instructed Tyler to do is to put together the spreadsheet so that we can more accurately take advantage of the information that comes through the shelter, so that we can do what you're asking for. In fact, that was one of the things that Jessica and I talked about this morning when we were having this conversation, is that as we move forward with the cost for veterinarian services, the cost for this year would be the $1,000, but we would agree next year based on actual numbers.
but that's not in the agreement.
It is.
It is.
We wrote
Okay,
it
I
in there.
didn't, where is that? I didn't read that.
It's under the obligations of the city, number 4.
If you just give me a number,
I
I'll
wrote it,
find
I
it and read
promise.
it. But that's not what I got, that there was, I didn't see anything about a change or that we would adjust those numbers.
It's listed as obligation to the city, or, sorry, obligation of the city. It's item number 4. D.
4D.
If an animal in the custody of the city animal control officer appears physically sick or injured, the city's officer shall take the animal to the animal shelter, where the shelter shall determine if the animal needs to be examined by the veterinarian and, if necessary, treated by a veterinarian prior to its admittance to the shelter. If the services of the veterinarian cannot be obtained at the time of surrender, the sick or injured animal shall be temporarily placed in the shelter until a veterinarian is available. If in consideration of this agreement, the city agrees to annually pay to the county $1,000 into the Spalding County Veterinarian Fund for said services, the county shall provide an accounting of veterinarian service to the city annually to adjust any cost adjustments to the payment for veterinarian services, which must be agreed in writing by both parties.
Okay, there was one other thing about what you just read. How can we make a determination that an animal, if an animal needs to go to the doctor and there's no vet available? I don't even know what that means.
Well, that's what
We can't
happens
bring an
now.
animal back into the shelter and let them sit for the weekend or whatever until a vet. I wouldn't want that to happen to my animal if it came to the shelter. That is not good policy. There's 10 vets here and other vets regionally. We should never take a sick or endangered animal and put it in the shelter for the weekend, because our experience has been, we've had some to die. We're trying to change what it is that our shelter, the history of what our shelter is like. I think I can handle the other part, but that's not a good move. That's not a good move for us, and it's not a good move for y'all.
Well, so what do you suggest? We leave it where it is?
No, they
So what
need
do
to
you
find
do?
a vet.
Well,
If
I,
you-
I think
That's
it's
what it
just
says,
preparing
just
for
in
the
case you can't.
contingency, and I agree with you, that contingency is not ever going to happen, because there are so many vets that are 24-hour, 7-day-a-week now in the general vicinity, so it's not gonna happen, but it is providing for the contingency of, you know, what if COVID happens and every vet's office is closed, then what do you do with the animal?
I
And
wish
they're
I could take
safer
this
at our
mask down
shelter
so you
than
could
they
see my
are.
face. Stephanie, that's a bunch of malarkey. If it is not written, it didn't happen. We clearly should never say, if it were a child and you took him to this emergency room and the doctor wasn't available, you take him somewhere else. You take him to the emergency vet in Hampton, you take him to the emergency vet in Fayetteville. If we're going to be responsible for these animals, let's not open the door for a loophole so that we cannot take care of them. That's my concern. So I don't like that bit of language in there that says that we will bring them back to the shelter. It's gonna cost us or it's gonna cost you, but I think we should provide treatment. We wouldn't be taking them to the vet if it wasn't an emergency. So I know that means, I don't know what that means in English in terms of the document, but that language is poor.
Okay.
One more question. Commissioner Dutton was sharing with me something about the park. He said
Yeah, we're just trying
something
to bring you up the wall.
about something about funding. I missed that.
Yeah, is there any
It's a revenue
funding
source, he said, or something.
coming to us from the city for taking the park on and all the costs associated with the park?
No.
Is there is the city gonna continue to provide law enforcement coverage there? And
Oh, yeah, it's within the city
City
limits, so we
limits.
would certainly do that.
I know that when we discussed it, maybe last year, there was talk of the city still providing like the cost for the lights, like the power to the lights and that kind of stuff. And there was something else. There
We're
was some other-
agreeing to cover the utilities for
The city has.
No,
No.
the
No,
county.
We are the county.
We agree to cover the utilities just like we do for the skate park and the gym.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion? I'm just, all right. Do I have a motion to approve the SDS?
Motion to approve.
All right, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Yes, are those changes gonna be put into that SDS document? Yes or no?
The IGA you're talking about with the,
The IGA for the mutual aid,
Well, that and the other things that we discussed as well.
So the mutual aid agreement would not be part of SDS. That would be just a separate agreement that we'll enter into.
Okay,
The motion was not to make changes to the animal shelter document.
Okay.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4, all those opposed, 1. Motion carries. Whew. Thank you,
Thank you.
Ms. O'Connor, and
Thank you.
all your people that have worked on that, and your commissioners and everything.
Y'all as well. And Dr. Ledbetter is not taking credit. He and Stephanie have done most of that Form 2 work. It's a lot of work. 658 pages of work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I would like to say that what I have seen over this course during this SDS has been fairly disgusting. I can understand and see why 10 years ago when we started talking about this, that there was so much anger and hatred between the city and the county in terms of this. This is a process that brings out the ugliest behavior in people that are grown up and professional. I hope to God I'm not here the next time y'all have to do it, because it's a shame that at some point in these talks, we were willing to throw away everything that we've done over the last 2 years to build this community up because grown folks couldn't play good. I don't like that.
Agreed.
Anybody who's made any comments that are disparaging of other commissioners or other directors is totally uncalled for. And I took everything that I had not to say it while it was happening. But I have seen some of the biggest babies carry on through this whole event. For me, it's been disgusting. I'm happy that it's done.
Right.
But it really should not be that. I don't know if this is something that our legislators need to deal with, but there clearly needs to be a better answer to working this out than having governments fight each other every 10 years over
Cool.
some dollars.
Well, what I can say and piggyback at that is I can appreciate what Ms. O'Connor was saying, how it wasn't really done correctly the first time, and how it took some time to actually get it together to make it right this time, which probably is the reason why a lot of that clawing came out. It wasn't done right. The contract had been extended over and over again, we already know that. But we had to actually were forced to do it this year. So, glad that it's done. And thank you to all the parties, including you, Commissioner Flowers Taylor, for being part of that negotiation and getting it done.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers Taylor, you led a whole bunch of this. You did a lot of work in this interagency back and forth, and I truly appreciate, we would not be where we are if it hadn't been for your personal work to be able to get this done. So, thank you. Your comments are exactly right on the part of the disgusting part.
I do want to add, attacking people personally is not okay. We can all disagree. Me and Gwen disagree on a lot of stuff.
Everything.
And, you know what I mean, and that's okay. Attacking a policy, that you disagree with, that's one thing. But attacking somebody personally and calling somebody names, that's never called for. That's not gonna get you where you wanna go. And we've seen a lot of that. Here we are arguing on the policies, and people are making it personal. And I agree with Commissioner Flowers Taylor that that's just not helpful.
Okay?
Thank God it's over.
Amen.
Yes. Thank goodness it's over with. We're gonna take a
One
break.
down, one to go.
We'll take a break, and then we will attack Lost. All right. Item number 2, the new item number 2, lift from the table and consider for approval the Heron Bay Master Development Plan. Cole Track Associates, LP, owner Minerva Properties, LLC, agent parcels 201-01002, 201-01002B, and 201-01009, approximately 179.98 total acres located in the land lot 146 and 143 of the Second Land District. Applicant request approval for the master development plan for Heron Bay Pods KK, LL, and MM. Do I have a motion to lift from the table?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we lift this from the table.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion needed on this? Huh? Oh, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5. Motion has been lifted. Dr. Ledbetter or
I
Miss-
will turn it over to Ms. Littlefield.
Ms. Littlefield?
All right, so this did come before you last month, and it was tabled to get more information from the applicant regarding their service delivery strategy I don't think I want to use those words. Their capacity to provide water to our residents, and in conjunction with the Spalding County Water and Sewage Authority, they've been working with Mr. Johnson, our general manager, and they've come to an agreement that they will be part of our service delivery. So, I do not think the applicant is here this evening. But they have come to an agreement, and staff does recommend approval with the conditions. They've already actually installed the fire hydrants at this point, which is standard for this type of development, and the water agreement is in place for what will happen and how it will proceed.
Okay, any more questions for the director? All right. We got a motion? Can I have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve with the conditions stated by staff.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 5-0, motion carries. Phil, if you'll pass that on to the developer, thank you. Item E, public hearing. Persons desiring to speak must sign in the appropriate application. When called, speakers must state their names and addresses and direct all comments to the board only. Speakers will be allocated 3 minutes to speak on their chosen topics as they relate to matters being considered by this Board of Commissioners on this agenda. No questions will be asked by any of the commissioners during citizen comments. Outbursts from the audience will not be tolerated. Common courtesy and civility are expected at all times. Do we have anybody signed up?
We do. We have Logan Moss. Mr. Moss, if you'll come forward and state your name and address, please.
Hey, Logan Moss, 1110 Tyler Street, Bogart, Georgia. Obviously, we've been working with Central Georgia EMC on the locations of these streetlights, so this is all their design. I think you guys had the layout tonight with you. So none of this was from us. It was just their design. So any questions?
Okay? You'll sit with us, and when we get to that part, we'll go back, and if we have questions, we'll ask you. Thank you, Mr. Moss. All right. Item number 1, conduct a public hearing on the streetlights of Vineyard Park subdivision. Dr.
You just did that one.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
just did
but-
that.
Nope, it was conducting the public hearing. We just did that one.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Yes.
There you go.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. F, new business. Application 22-21S, Adam Luke Smith, owner, 965 Campground Road, approximately 3.67 acres, located in land lot 26 of the First Land District. Applicant requests a special exception for a home occupation general to conduct firearms sale, transfers, and gunsmithing. Director Littlefield.
So this is a special exception to make sure that all of our businesses are operating in Spalding County, to let people know we are open for business and we're supporting our small businesses. We've had several of these come before you, all with the same conditions. We recommend no exterior signage. The fire marshal will do an inspection, and there's, any felony conviction has to be reported within 10 days. The other side of this is that there is, I want to reiterate, this is not a shooting range.
Thank you.
This is just the sales and transfer, as well as the ability to do gunsmithing in a minor occupation, in a minor home occupation setting. If the board has any questions, I will be glad to answer them, but again, I would like to reiterate before any questions come forward, this is not an outdoor shooting range.
I have questions.
This is more of the same stuff, like the ATF is requiring.
Yes, sir. They've already.
We've done like 4 or 5 of these already.
So
Yes,
this is-
he's already done his ATF investigation. They are awaiting our approval he's been vetted through ATF.
So these are people actually coming in to purchase, I mean, this is not internet stuff, right? I mean, they're coming in to purchase.
They have to be located in the state of Georgia, and the person who actually sells the gun has to also be located in the state of Georgia. So it is an online
Online.
purchase, but it has to be, the transfer has to be person
Okay,
to
but it's
person.
it's online, okay.
Mr. Chairman, Kelly, how many gunsmithing special exceptions have we given in the last 6 years?
To
Or
my
even in
kno-
the last 3 years?
To my knowledge, the 3 that you've done since I've been here.
And that was for a home occupation?
Yes, ma'am.
I know I'm getting old, but I swear, I don't remember that. And I don't remember it for the simple reason that when full-blown fireworks came here 10 years ago, they were not going to be selling weapons. They were not going to be operating a gun range. Clearly, if you're fixing guns, you have to be able to shoot them. And anybody is allowed in the county to fire a weapon on their private property. But you will just have to excuse me, because the bad taste has not
Yes.
left my mouth
Yes.
for the hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money we had to spend to remediate the damage that was done to a community. And so, while it sounds good, and you guys are talking about, yeah, let's promote small business, my experience has been, we have not done well with that. That is why I'm trying to ask you about where the other gunsmithing businesses are, because I feel like the only thing I can remember is someone came to us about Massfield and wanted to do an indoor range.
Yes, ma'am.
That I know that we did approve, but an outdoor, not an outdoor range, an outdoor,
Home.
in a neighborhood, and I don't know if how far people are around, but even in the incident that I'm speaking of, 29 people who lived around this one family signed a statement saying, we agree he should have a small business, blah, 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 blah.
Yes, ma'am.
Those same 29 people talked to us for the next 6 years because they couldn't sleep at night because gun paraphernalia or whatever was in their yard. So I have a real problem with a business operating that shoots guns outdoors in a neighborhood. What's the density of the neighborhood?
So that's a totally different thing. There's not shooting involved here. This is a requirement by the ATF. These businesses have been operating for, how long have you had this going on? What did you say?
Beginning of this year for me.
I know Eric Moy, who was one of the folks that came, has been doing it for like 12 years.
Eric was the one that was here.
But like, the ATF now comes in and says, hey, they also have to have the zoning correct on the county side. And so the ATF has come in and said, hey, you gotta get these special exceptions. Nothing's changing, no one's expanding business, you're gonna do the same thing you've been doing, same thing with Eric and all these guys. This is just a bureaucratic requirement of the ATF. This
No,
is
no,
not-
I think that you're not correct on that.
Okay, my
Because-
brother has one of these, and I'm telling you, I helped him with the
because
paperwork.
if
This is exactly what it is.
the ATF was here, the people who were here before were certified through the ATF.
But that's
They
a totally
had an
different situation.
ATF. How is it totally different?
Because they had a shooting range.
How,
This is,
no, the people that came here initially were going to gunsmith, they were going to fix guns,
Mm-hmm.
they would, sell a gun if they fixed it, and then they had a small shooting pit. Now, nobody
Right.
has said anything about a pit, but
Right.
clearly, part of the reason the guy had explained to us that he had the shooting pit was because when he fixed somebody's gun, he had to shoot it to see if it worked.
so that's,
So can you say that they're not shooting?
so that's like blacksmithing a gun to make a gun, that's like making a gun. Whereas the ATF requires, so if I buy, I'm not gonna use the fancy terms, if I buy like the handle for a gun and then like the part that goes pew pew, and I put those two together, I have manufactured a gun. There's no hammers involved, there's no blowtorches, there's no smithing of a gun, but by the ATS definition, I have
But that's what
gunsmithing a
they
gun.
asked for, is a
That-
gunsmithing.
That's right. And so they don't have to test fire this gun. It's two parts that are designed to fit together, but they bought one from one company, one from another company, and when they put them together, they're not guns. They can ship them here, they put them together, but now they have to have an ATF, FFL to now sell this completed gun that they have smithed.
So I would like to know from
That's
the
it.
applicant that they don't have to fire guns. That's what I wanna know. I want to know that there is no gun gonna be being fired.
Mr. Chair, the applicant is present.
Well, that's why I said that, so the applicant can talk.
Adam, come on up to, please.
I'm not saying Adam's not gonna shoot.
Yeah, you just said.
But
it's
you
not
got- there's
gonna
no
be-
re-
Right in the world to shoot, if he wants
No,
to go up
I'm
and shoot
not,
recreational.
I'm
I mean,
not.
That's right,
I'm
that's right.
talking
This
about
isn't a
weapons.
paid, this isn't a
I'm
part of the
talking about the
thing.
people
Hold
that live there.
one at a time.
Control of
Wait a minute, hold up,
One
because
at a time.
first of all, don't get mad because I have a concern. Yes, you are
Don't put
completely
your, don't put your
red.
finger in my face again.
Hey.
Oh,
You're
what you
on,
gonna do?
you're on a soapbox.
Y'all,
Hey,
stop,
What you gonna do?
stop.
What you gonna do?
Can I call for the question? Can I call for the question?
Okay,
Yeah.
hold it. Let's take care of the issue we've got. Adam, are you gonna be shooting?
I will not tell a lie. I will be shooting.
Okay,
But
that's
my,
all I
hold on,
want you to
hold on,
say.
hold on. My shooting habits will not change due to this. I shoot on my property as is. I will not be shooting more or less as a result of this business. I shoot my firearms on my property. I will continue to shoot my firearms on my property, whether I have a business license or not. If I get this business license, that will not increase my ability to shoot a firearm.
Now, not your ability to shoot. You have a need to shoot it if you're fixing a weapon, right?
Motion to
Not
approve.
necessarily, no ma'am.
Okay, explain to me that, please, if you don't mind.
But I think Mr. Dutton did a great job explaining that already. But, you know, essentially, what he's referring to is the ATF has specific definitions that may not correlate with the way that we understand them. Like if you, for example, if you were to repaint or re-blue or refinish a firearm, the ATF considers that as manufacturing that firearm.
What's
So-
re-blue?
I'm sorry?
Re-blue?
Re-blue, it's just a finish on a firearm.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So not everything that I do is gonna require me to shoot a firearm. No, ma'am.
So that is what I needed to, from you to hear, that,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
clearly the weapon
I
has
have
been
no
fired.
intentions of having a shooting range at my home, nor do I have any intentions of allowing people onto my property that I do not know to shoot their weapons on my land. But I do, I'm not gonna lie to you about that, I do and will continue to shoot my firearms on my property.
As an individual.
Right.
What are some of the, can you go over some of the conditions? Are there conditions here? that-
I have three
Okay.
that
just
I've
please go over
proposed.
those.
There's
Oh,
no.
Are we finished asking?
No, I want to ask
Okay,
you,
great.
did you request of the individuals that live, what are the closest neighbors you have?
I have spoken with all of my neighbors around me, and no one has had any issues. As a matter of fact, my neighbors do shoot firearms with me. So we're not in a neighborhood or in a densely populated, we're out in the county. So,
Right, but this area that you're talking about is 3 acres, right?
yes, ma'am.
So the people that live around you, do you know the acreage of their property? I'm concerned
They're
about the closeness.
approximately 3 to 4 acres is each tract of land around me. So to my side, to the other side is my family members. So for 16 acres of that property is owned by my family.
Okay,
And then to my other side is another family that owns it, and they're several hundred yards from my home, so through the woods.
wanted to ask, thank you for
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that.
You have a
Yeah,
motion?
no problem.
No complaints from any of the
Nobody
people that
seconded
have gunsmithing license?
No, ma'am.
Nobody has a gun pit?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
All right,
Two of
thank
the
you.
gun,
Thank you.
if I can clarify.
Well, I want the conditions.
That
if you don't
answer,
mind.
two of the gunsmiths that were approved, two of the three are actually in organized neighborhoods.
Okay.
So when you say organized, what do you mean?
I mean,
Density
it's
is
an
high
actual
density?
subdivision, yes, ma'am.
And they've been operating the business for 12 years and
Mr. Moy
have
has,
continued
yes, sir.
to
Mr.
operate.
who?
Eric Moy.
Eric Moy.
Mr. Moy.
He was the last guy that was here. Remember when he was here? Were you here? You may have been, she may have been gone.
No, 'cause I would never
So
have
you buy an
voted for
upper
her.
from this company and you buy a lower from this company, you put them together, the ATF says you've now manufactured a gun. You haven't, but by their definitions, you've manufactured a gun, so you've gotta get this permit that takes just jumping through flaming hoops for the ATF to get. But now the ATF has come in and said, hey, you've gotta have the right county zoning, as if they should really care about what the county says, but they do now. So now all these folks have gotta come in and ask for these special exceptions for some reason, so they can continue to do what they've been doing for years and years and years. There's no reason why we shouldn't give these exceptions.
So I guess I want to once again ask my question. Can you go over the special exceptions, please?
So the conditions?
Yeah, conditions, I'm sorry.
So the conditions that staff proposes is no exterior signage.
Okay.
The fire marshal must provide an inspection at the premises, and any felony conviction must be reported within 10 days. And that's a requirement by the ATF on us as zoning officials.
That's the felony conviction of the applicant, correct?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Since this is operating as a business, do we have any parking requirements for them?
Not for minor home occupation. They
Okay.
can't have more than one person at the business at a time.
Is there a building or a shop already on the property that is housing your workspace?
Zoning doesn't require minor home occupations to be as accessory uses. It allows them to actually be within the home. That's the fire marshal requirement.
Have we always required a special exception for a gun range? Not a gun range, for a smithing, for a home occupation?
For a home occupation, that's the way our ordinance is currently written, yes,
Is
ma'am.
that you have to have a special exception?
Because it falls outside of the normal parameters, yes, ma'am.
So it's basically non-conforming use?
It's not non-conforming, it's conforming in the sense of if you equate it with retail sales, such as second-party market, aftermarket retailers, or direct distribution retailers. However, because of the nature of the business and the ATF requirement, we're trying to make sure that all of our businesses are compliant with the
Okay.
federal entity as well.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. for
Any more
answering.
questions?
Any other questions?
All right, all those in favor signify by raising your hand.
Yeah, I think Ryan seconded.
Second like 5
Okay.
times, but no,
All right.
it matters.
Any, all those in favor signify by raising your hands. 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Smith, we
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith, you'll have your letter to report to Mr.
Yep.
Griffith at our
Thank you
earliest
for staying for
convenience.
that.
Thank you.
All right. G, other business, consider approval for Parks and Leisure Service staff to move forward in seeking 2 grants, one for AMBUCS and one for Volunteer Park, to provide a maximum $2 million in each location to overhaul the ball fields. Additionally, the request is to allocate $34,800 for contracting with CLP team from Swanee, Georgia, to provide an extensive set of deliverables in support of the grant and the proposed improvements. Dr. Ledbetter.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have TJ up and make presentation for us this evening. I'm not sure that we are at 2 grants now. I think we're at, how many?
Be 5 projects, 2 at Volunteer, 3 at AMBUCS would be
So
the request being
we-
submitted.
The team that consisted of Mr. Emberger, Mr. Stansel, and Lisa Perkins and I met with Jen Wade yesterday morning. Jen Wade is the director of OPB for the state. She administers all the grant funds. And during the discussion, we made realization that we could ask for more money by splitting the projects into separate applications and do a considerable amount of upgrades to both AMBUCS and to Volunteer Park. Again, kudos to Commissioner Flowers Taylor for sending over the information on the neighborhood improvement grant material that she got by email, and that's what sparked all of our conversation over the last few weeks about getting us in a position where we could make applications. So, Mr. Emberger, any other comments that you'd like to share about the projects and the plans?
I would answer questions as needed.
So the ask tonight is, to make sure I'm understanding this, since I just learned of this a couple of hours ago, is the $34,800, is that what we're asking for?
That
right
is
now?
correct. This money would be designated specifically for conceptual engineering designs for both locations. And it is split $17,400 per location.
Correct.
And the reason that we need this information is to put us in a position for the grants to be able to satisfy one of the major requirements, which is conceptual design and a very strong understanding from an outside vendor at how much each project will cost the county. If we can get into that position, the state will, according to Ms. Wade's conversation we had with her yesterday, will move us up in line for the grant monies that are available. There are only 2 census tracts that fall in the county that we can actually make application for, and that is for Ambucks and for Volunteer Park. Wyoming Attias does not qualify because it's outside of the census tract. The state has identified very specific areas that this money will qualify to pay for projects. And Ambucks and Volunteer Park are 2 of the areas that were highlighted in the grant application. And
What about
TJ,
the other parks that we're just taking over now for the city?
Actually, we could,
It is in the census tract.
if it's in the census tract, then we could absolutely look at doing some additional grant funding for those particular areas, which would be an amazing opportunity for us.
And Volunteer Park actually is included in that agreement with City Park. Both of those are included.
I would like to see that.
All right?
So we started out with 3 projects, and
Started
now
out-
we're at 5.
We started with 2 because we had initially thought we would only be able to ask for 2, one for each facility. And then we found out yesterday that we can ask for multiple projects per facility.
So will there need to be a workup for every individual project?
That's
And
correct.
are we being charged one price for 2 projects in one spot?
The CLP has agreed to handle all of the required paperwork, concepts, and pricing for these 5 projects. They were notified of that yesterday, and they have agreed to that. So the pricing was originally for 2 projects, and now they have agreed to do all 5 for us.
And the timeline on this, the drop dead date on the grant?
It's going to be November 16th, but we have to have our application in 72 hours prior, and CLP has agreed they'll start immediately. We'll have a site visit first thing next week, and we discussed no later than 10 days. And this firm should be big enough to handle that. They have committed to that.
So they're committed to have something to us by the 10th.
Yes, yes. I was
Because
just
it's
doing the math, I'm sorry.
16th's the last day, 72 hours before is when you guys
Right.
submit.
I've actually told them the 10th or the 11th so that we could give Lisa a sufficient amount of time to finish that portion of the applications.
All right, any more questions?
Yes, where's the money coming from?
That's, I was just pointing to him.
That's a great question. I would ask that the commissioners afford us the opportunity to use contingency funds to front-end load this. With the $34,800 coming out of contingency, we stand the opportunity to get $10+ million in return. That's a huge opportunity for us. Kudos to the team for spending time yesterday on the phone with Jen Wade and for Ms. Perkins doing a yeoman's job at pulling together the narrative material to put us in a position where we can actually make this application. We didn't think we would be able to get here. We really didn't. We're under a very short timeline, but Lisa and TJ and his team have pulled a lot of work together in a very short amount of time to get this application ready to go. Now we just need this last piece of the puzzle to put us in a position where we can finalize the application for this much money.
I'm okay with,
You go.
I'm okay with using the contingency funds. I think that's probably the most ideal spot to use. But I want to make sure, as we're now going into the new budget, that we don't spend a lot of contingency, I'm hearing. That we don't spend it all. We still have training and things that we would like to attend this year, and I know that money can go by fast.
Yeah, your training money is still there. This $34,000 accounts for, out of the $100,000 that we have, is 34%. So we still have a considerable amount of money sitting in the contingency.
Have we used it
for
already this year for something?
We
I
used a
requested
very
it.
little bit,
Okay, well, I thought we had. I just want to make sure we're.
very, very little
Okay.
bit.
All right, that's
All
all.
right, do I have a motion to approve?
I have a question
Oh,
before you go. So Steve, I guess it was when I first sent that grant to you guys, I thought you sent us something back saying that it had to be front-loaded.
It
Do we
did.
have a plan?
We do. We actually asked that question yesterday, and thank you for bringing that up. I did not share that with you. The conversations that we had yesterday with Jen Wade, who is the director for OPB for the state of Georgia, we asked her that question specifically. How fast can we get paid? She said that they pay back in 2 days. We can expect the check in less than 30.
Right,
And I was
approved
like,
in
well,
2
that
days.
didn't make any sense to me, 2 days and 30. She said 2 days for the approval, 30 days for getting the check. So
It's pretty fast.
it's relatively fast compared to any other grants that we have.
So has anyone been awarded this grant yet?
No one has been awarded this grant. They're brand-new grants going out for these census blocks. So I can't call anybody and ask them how fast they're turning the numbers around.
So that would be my concern, and I'm sure as a manager, that is your concern
It
as
is.
well, is that, you know, we can't even get the state to pay us for their prisoners or to take them to wherever they want to go. So I just don't want us to be sitting in a place where we've expended money and we waiting on the state to.
Yes, ma'am.
So
That-
yeah.
That was actually one of the questions that the team discussed yesterday. What would happen if we just let all the projects at once? We would be out of money, and that would never be the intent. We can actually take between the time of award and October 2026. So we can stagger these projects so that we don't get out of money. We want to make sure that we're doing this fiscally sound and in full transparency for our community. And we want to do it in a way that we don't overspend at all. We want to make sure that we're getting our money back so that we can satisfy the projects and pay for them without taking money out of the county.
Is there some plan, should you get all 5 or however many projects it is, maybe more, now that you're talking about City Park? Is there a chance that, we could have a phase schedule, just so that we can have an idea of where we're moving, and then better know when the money's gonna have to go and what you need to get back? I would feel more comfortable just knowing.
Cool.
Yes, ma'am. When we get the award, I'm going to reiterate, when we get the award, we will come back to you with a full-blown plan, a project plan for how we're going to stagger this into existence, because we don't want to go out and spend a lot of money up front and then the state take an extended period of time to get us the money back. We will sit and try one project at a time to make sure that we don't overspend any of the money that we have coming to us.
So is there a need for us to put a contingency on this 34,000 because you may look at least 2 more sites when you're looking at the census block?
With a short amount of time, we will look
You
at
won't
those
be able
2
to
other
do it.
areas. We may take those positions and do in-house conceptual designs and make them a part of the application process.
I would just hate for you, if it's gonna cost more, cause you got 2 more projects, to
Ab-
have to
ab-
come back to us.
Absolutely.
And so at least that $10,000 contingency, one way or the other, if you don't use it, it stays in the fund. But if you have to,
If the board would be so inclined to do that, we will be very frugal with the money that you provide us.
so I would like to then make a motion to approve up to,
50,000?
I mean, that's fine, up to 50,000 for, engineering and conceptual plans with the name of the company,
CPL?
CPL, for, the conceptual drawings for this grant application.
All right, I have a motion, I have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0. Great, thank you,
Thank you,
Ms.
TJ.
Flowers, on trying to do this. TJ, good work on cranking the thing fast. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 4-0. We're adjourned.
Now what you wanna say? No, 'cause you done came at me the wrong